RLUSD may end up being one of the most understood launches in crypto history because most people still think RLUSD is competing with XRP. They think Ripple launched a stablecoin because XRP somehow failed. I think the exact opposite is happening. I think RLUSD may end up being one of the biggest catalysts for XRP adoption the market has ever seen. And the reason why has almost nothing to do with retail speculation and everything to do with how the future financial system actually works. RLUSD is a proof of concept for how institutions, banks, governments, payment providers, exchanges, and enterprises can use digital dollars and eventually their own stablecoins with an interoperable infrastructure. And XRP sits at the center of all this to provide liquidity coordination across that entire layer. In this video, we're going to break down why tokenization changes global finance forever, why stablecoins are exploding, why liquidity fragmentation becomes the biggest problem in this new financial system, why RLUSD may onboard institutions faster than XRP alone, and why XRP becomes more important in a multi-stablecoin world than it is today. So stick around to the end. We got a lot of gold nuggets for you, so let's dive in. XRP and RLUSD create a liquidity flywheel that continues to scale for decades. As we enter the largest infrastructure transformation in financial history, not just in regular history or crypto history, it is the largest change that's ever going to happen in our lifetime. Every asset class, you name it, real estate, treasuries, stocks, private equity, commodities, trade finance, insurance products, carbon credits, debt instruments, everything is going to be tokenized. The Boston Consulting Group projected tokenization could become $16 trillion market by 2030. Personally, I think that number may be a little bit conservative because tokenization solves problems traditional finance has struggled with for decades. Right now, real estate can take up to 60, 90 days to settle a transaction sometimes. Cross-border wires take multiple business days. Private equity locks up capital for years. Securities markets still operate on delayed settlement times, and international liquidity requires massive pre-funding accounts to the tune of $27 trillion in Nostro Vostro. The current system is fragmented, it's slow, and it's expensive. Tokenization changes all of that. When all these assets move on chain, settlement becomes near instant. Ownership becomes fractional. Liquidity becomes global, and markets become interoperable, which also allows for all the capital to become programmable. And that's why every major financial institution is exploring this right now in 2026. BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, JP Morgan, Visa, MasterCard, you name it. It's no longer theoretical. This is infrastructure migration this year. And here's where things get interesting. As everything becomes tokenized, everything also becomes fragmented. You need liquidity across all of this. Most people assume that the future, one stablecoin ends up dominant. I don't think that's realistic at all. I think the future has thousands of tokenized deposits and stablecoins and other tokenized representations of value that these banks, governments, and institutions will need to be able to drive their own incentives, but also participate in the broader economy. This is true for fintechs and exchanges, banks, you name it. All of them will be creating these products. And now we've got tokenized money markets. We've got tokenized treasuries, and countries are starting to issue their own regional settlement assets. And every one of these creates another fragmented piece of liquidity that's its own silo. This becomes the next financial major problem, is more fragmentation. So let's say, as an example, Bank of America has a stablecoin and Citi has their own stablecoin. And a tokenized treasury fund exists in one ecosystem or another. And then you also have a regional payment network that uses another settlement asset. How does value effectively move between all of them? That's the real challenge. The future financial system doesn't need stablecoin. It needs interoperability. It needs liquidity, and it needs a neutral bridge. And that's where XRP becomes extremely important. If all of these large banks were to just issue their own stablecoin, the other banks aren't going to want to settle in their stablecoin. They're going to want their own stablecoin on the other side of the transaction. You need a decentralized DEX and an asset that can move that value in between these ecosystems to settle in whatever asset they want on their balance sheet. So let's talk about RLUSD specifically. RLUSD is Ripple's US-backed stablecoin on the XRPL and on Ethereum. But this is where people misunderstand the strategy. Ripple did not launch RLUSD because XRP failed. Ripple launched RLUSD because institutions think differently than retail. Institutions want price stability. They want regulatory clarity. They want predictability. They have to deal with compliance. Things have to be audited, and they need familiar accounting treatment. Most institutions are not comfortable with holding a volatile digital asset directly in their treasury operations, at least yet. They are comfortable with holding a regular dollar-denominated asset like a stablecoin, and this is the Trojan horse. Stablecoins become the institutional entry point for tokenization and access to this new financial system. This